talk. We're also working closely with Miss Alatini, Miss Wilk, who is the CAS coordinator, Mr. Granger, the TOK department head, and Mr. Frayne from the learning support department at CEISSEN. Are you a question? Raise your hand if you are familiar with the IB program. Yes? Okay, so it's a minority. So raise your hand if you're not familiar at all with the IB program. Half? Maybe. Okay, so we'll go through. When we're talking about TOK, CAS, do you have an idea of what I'm talking about? Somehow? Maybe not. Okay, all right, it's good to know. All right, okay, then let's start. Today we are going to talk about the pathways available at CEISSEN for grade 11 and 12. Okay, we are going to talk about DP, full DP or not full DP. Students can take DP courses without taking the full DP course. So we're going to talk in detail about that. We are going to talk about the subjects offered at CEISSEN and provide some guidance regarding the selection of some subjects. The most common questions arise with literature against language and literature, math classes, and language classes. Okay, you don't have to take photos because this has been shared in the parents portal this morning. Okay, next step for your daughter, March 3rd is the deadline to submit the form signed by the parents and by the teachers. And also we have collected a list of resources, useful resources for the parents, mainly from the IB website. Okay, so 3 pathways. All the students at CEISSEN will receive the CEISSEN diploma. So to obtain the CEISSEN diploma, they need to get credits. We're not going to go over the detail of credits, and they need to pass CAS, the CAS program. The majority of students at CEISSEN take the full diploma, and some students will take only IB courses. The full diploma means that you have to take 6 subjects from group 1 to group 6 in the IB diploma, 3 at the higher level and 3 at the standard level. There's more flexibility when students take IB courses. They don't have to work to take the TOK class, the course. TOK is something between philosophy and epistemology, if you're familiar with these subjects. The extended essay is a 4,000-word essay that students need to work on independently, and they will have a supervisor who is generally an IB teacher. This means that generally the summer between year 1 and year 2 should be used to work about 40 hours on the extended essay. And CAS stands for is it creativity, activity, and service. So you will find here just a link to the IB program. So please do not hesitate to dig into their IB the IB website. So if we define the IB program, it's a bridge between the MYP that you are familiar with now and higher education. So it's a university qualification, just like the AP or any national program. But there are major differences between programs like the AP or the A-levels or the French baccalaureate or any other national system and the international baccalaureate. And the main difference is that it's not only an exit exams. When you take the AP, you need to know the content, and you're going to pass. In the IB, actually, it's a comprehensive program, and students need to work on for the external exams, but also for the internal assessments. So, for example, in economics, because I'm teaching economics, Higher level students' final mark in the IB is 80% what they do in the external exam and 20% what they do in the internal exam, not the internal assessment. So in economics, for example, they need to write commentaries. I cannot help them, but they need to respect the deadlines. So students in year 2 especially have a lot of internal deadlines. These are official deadlines that they should not miss. If they miss the deadline, you receive an email from the teachers and from me. And our daughter might be put on academic review because she's not meeting the deadlines. Okay, so comprehensive program, it means that it's including also theory of knowledge, 100 hours of class, extended essay, and therefore creativity activity service. Also, so the IB approach to education is very holistic. It's promoting interdisciplinary learning. So students in a TOK class will have many discussions, debates about what's the nature of knowledge in each of the subjects that they are taking. Also, the IB focuses on international mindedness, and so students need to develop proficiency in 2 languages. For most of the students at CEISSEN, it's going to be English plus a second language. The second language at CEISSEN for 40% of the students is also language and literature in Japanese. And the students who pass get a 3 in both literature, English A and Japanese A, obtain the bilingual diploma. I'll show you the current grade 12 selection of subjects. Okay, all right, everything is in the DP handbook. So you just need to open it, and it's a PDF, maybe 10 pages, and you have all the rules, the subject offered, and so on and so forth. Then you can start good conversation with your daughter. Okay, so the IB likes to present their programs with wheels. At the center of the wheel, you have the core, theory of knowledge, extended essay, and CAS programs. And around this, you have 6 areas, 6 what correspond to different subjects. So you have language A, second language, individual and societies, experimental sciences, mathematics, and the arts. Okay, so I think I already explained all this. The difference between higher level and standard level is that we go deeper in higher level. Students have 250 hours of class against 240, against 150 for standard level students. So far, so good? Yes, okay. For TOK, students will have to work year 1 on what we call an exhibition. Concretely, they're going to pick on their own 3 objects, and they have to provide a reflection on how this is related to some knowledge. So students who take the full diploma need to like abstract thinking and read a lot. Okay, so extended essay and CAS. I'm not going to focus too much on this. We are going to talk a lot about ATLs, but you know already the terminology of ATLs, approaches to learning in the MYP, right? Yes, when you receive a report card, generally you have the marks, the comments from the teachers, and the ATLs, right? Critical thinking, research skills. So the IB is crafted for students who want to go to university and start think like researchers a little bit, if you want. Okay, so they develop critical thinking, communication skills, research skills, creative thinking, and reflection skills. Okay. This is the example, the May 25 prescribed title for the TOK essay. Which one would you pick? So generally, it's broad enough to give students the opportunity to think of knowledge, acquisition of knowledge in their preferred subject. Personally, I would probably take the one that is related to history and economics, I guess. Okay, that gives you an idea of what they do. All right? Okay. Now, how are the students assessed in the IB program? The maximum score that you can get is 45. Historically, no student at CEISSEN has ever achieved a 45. The highest mark is generally 44. Yes.
Sorry,
We have one, maybe.
We had 2 in the past, but that was during the year of
COVID,
when
so-
the exam papers were reduced.
Yes.
So now when the
technically,
exams
no.
were back on, the highest is 44.
Yeah. So technically, for me, no, because during the COVID years, everything was easier. So a student can get a maximum of 7 in each subject. So if you do your calculations, 42 marks maximum in the 6 subjects chosen, plus a maximum of 3 marks for TOK and extended essay. So we have here the TOK EE matrix. Students can get a 0, a 1, it's additional marks if you want, 0, 1, 2, or 3, depending on the mark that they receive in TOK and extended essay. At no point students do not fail at CEISSEN, because if you receive an E in TOK or in extended essay, you fail the diploma very simply, whatever the grades that you obtain in the external exams. One thing to be very, I told the grade 10 students to think strategically about the choice of a higher level subject, because to get the diploma, students need 24 marks in total, but 12 marks at least in the higher level subject. So 12 divided by 3, it's 4 on average on their higher level subjects. So if your daughter gets a 2 in 2 of her higher level subjects, she cannot get the diploma, because 2 plus 7 equals 11. Last year, 1 student failed the diploma, having 25 marks in total, which is enough to get the diploma, but 9 marks in a higher level subject. So that's very important for students to pick carefully the higher level subjects, not to be at risk of failing the diploma. It's okay so far? So good? Okay, let's move. Here are the results. Can you see? Maybe not. Don't worry, you have. You can go back to the presentation in the parents portal. Okay. May 23, May 24, the average for CEISSEN is 34. So now you understand 45 is the maximum. 34 is the average at CEISSEN. And it was the average at CEISSEN before COVID years. Okay? To give you an idea, Ecolint in Geneva has also, which is the biggest IB school in the world, also has an average of 34. St. Mary's, I think it's 35. YIS, it's also 34, 35. Selective schools now, like K International School in Tokyo, has an average of 42, and they are in the top 5 of the world because they just screen their students at the end of IGCSEs and take only the best. 42 means a mix of 6 and 7s in all their subjects, plus the 3 marks. So we're not a selective school. That's the policy, that's the philosophy at CEISSEN. Basically, so far, if students want to challenge themselves and take the diploma, we'll encourage them to take it. However, we can see some patterns, and I can tell you that students who have an average of 5 in their MYP classes overall are at risk of not doing very well in the full DP program. So for these students who are not strong academically, maybe IB courses is a better strategy. So you have to be aware of that, okay? Okay, you can see here the distribution of CEISSEN. So 4 students last year got a 40. So it's something to get in the club of 40 and plus in among IB alumni. 4 students got a 40 to 45, highest score, and so it's about the same every year. You see, it's about the same distribution of grades at CEISSEN. Okay, so it means that the average grade obtained by candidates from CEISSEN is 535. So now, what does that mean? A 5, between a 5 and a 6 in IB subjects. I'm going to give you an example from economics. So students who got a 7 in an IB subject like economics are demonstrating high-level thinking skills. They read a lot. They read beyond the textbook. Students who get a 6 are competent. They know they can demonstrate their knowledge in economics, and they write well enough to structure to provide a good answers. Competent, I would say. Students who get a 5 know the content, but their answers are not fully developed. Okay? So it's the same for all subjects. Across the subject, it's about the same. So you will hear, so when your daughter is in the IB, she will maybe talk about TOK, EE, and how she's struggling not to get a 7 in her subjects. But it's fine. It's where she is. That's fine. Okay. The subjects offered at CEISSEN, group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in colors. So group 1 corresponds to language A, English A, literature, English A, language and literature. That's a new addition from this year actually. Japanese A, language and literature, and self-taught literature. We have one student in grade 12 taking French literature, so she will receive the English-French bilingual diploma. Most students at CEISSEN are challenging themselves and try to get as proficient as they can in their second language or their first language, which is Japanese, and get the valuable diploma, bilingual diploma. Group 2, French B, Japanese B, Spanish B, Japanese AB Inicio. AB Inicio is for complete beginners. Students who want to take French or Spanish and are complete beginners, unless we have a minimum of 4 or 5 students who want to take it, we are not going to open the class. So they can take it online on Pamoja, but this will incur additional cost about, now with the yen and Yasu, about 400,000 yen for the 2 years. So have to think of it. Group 3, economics, geography, history, psychology. Group 4, biology, computer sciences, or science, chemistry. Environmental, ESS is environmental system sciences and systems. And physics, ESS is an interdisciplinary subject. It could be taught in group 3 also, but at CEISSEN we teach it, we consider it's a science. Mathematics, analysis and approaches, math applications and interpretation, visual arts and music. Okay, so that's the offering at CEISSEN. For a small school like us, it's quite a lot actually. It's a good program. Okay, here are the current grade 12 selection of subjects. Okay, so you see 20 of them will receive a bilingual diploma. Depending on the year, we have generally 40-40, 30-40 students who take 2 subjects in group 3 because they want to go into business, social sciences, then they don't have to take a subject in group 6. Same for students who want to go into medicine or engineering, they tend to take math, AAHL, and 2 sciences. Okay, then they don't have to take a group 6. It's all right. That's how it's working. Okay. Okay, questions from parents. Should my daughter take literature or language and literature? The big difference is that you have much more to read, not pure literature in literature. but a mix of literary texts and other texts in language and literature. So generally EAL students go for language and lit because they're still acquiring also the writing skills in English. But now it's a matter of taste also. So students who like to study literature will go into literature, but it doesn't mean that they should not go into language and literature. In language and literature, students will also study advertisements, the language used in advertising, the language used by politicians when they do speeches, and so on and so forth. Okay? Examples of tasks or essays: analyzing the effectiveness of persuasive techniques in a political speech. That's language and literature. Writing a comparative analysis of a poem and a non-literary text on a similar theme is also language and literature. Okay? In literature, it's only compared to two pieces of work. All right? Okay. The other big question is, should my daughter take mathematics analysis and approaches or mathematics applications and interpretation? To make it short, students who are good at math, want to go into engineering or mathematics, why not, are going to take AA, higher level. Some students who want to go in these fields also, engineering or technical fields, will tend to take AASL. But you can, depending on what you want to do after CESN, you can go also in applications and interpretation. Typically, students will go in business, social sciences will prefer to take AI because it's they're looking at how the models apply to real life examples. It's okay? All right, okay. And the big question is about language A or language B for some students. The only placement policy that the IB has is on languages. So every student should be challenged at the right level for them. So if you're native in Japanese, you will not be placed in language B, group 2, even B higher level. No way. So you have to trust the professionalism of Japanese teachers in grade 10 because they are the one who know best what is the best placement for your daughter in languages. There are exceptions. If a student with learning difficulties maybe will be placed in language B higher level. But if you're near native or native, no way, you don't go into language B. That's, if we don't, we have to respect the rules. The IB is checking the schools who have too many 7 in language B HL. It means that there's some sort of maladministration of the IB program. For some students, they might think, oh, it's an easy way. I'm native in Japanese. Oh, I'm going to take Japanese BHL and I'll get a 7 without doing anything. So that's not fair for the others who are really acquiring the language. So we don't accept these changes from language A, advanced in grade 10, to language B in the IB. Okay? All right, next steps for your daughter. She has to think by herself, right? Have good discussions with you. Have an interview with Miss Louis. And then make her choices by March 3rd, okay? What we say to students is that they should not be influenced by their peers. It's not because their best friend is going to take Math AA higher level that she has to follow. It's fine. Also, students should not take the full diploma because they feel that they're dumb if they take only IB courses. No, that's not the case. Some students know if you want to become a French chef, no need to take the full IB, no need to take the IB at all, and that's totally fine. You're going to have to be successful because you like to cook. It's fine. You're going to make a living. So you should not think that because you're at CESN, you need to take the full IB. Now, if you want to challenge yourself, take it. It's okay. Resources for parents, so you have this in your advice. Okay, don't worry. We're going to. I received questions regarding the changes of subjects. Students make their choice. We're going to review their choices. If we think that it's going to be too challenging, we'll have further conversations with the student and maybe you, the parents also. Students are allowed to change subjects until mid-September in the first year of the IB. Now what we are putting in place now is we'll have an academic review, a review of the progress of all students at the end of Q1 next year. If we feel that some students would benefit for their well-being and overall workload would benefit from a change, we'll do the changes. Okay? So everything will be transparent and that's it. So don't worry too much. Okay? And I'm going to pass on to Ms. Louis.
Hi everyone. So I'm here to talk about the higher ed side of things because I know what they choose in grade 11 and 12 will ultimately impact their future. So just by starting off, we've been talking about like IB diploma versus IB courses. So parents probably want to know how will that affect their future pathway. So broadly speaking, IB diploma, it's not mandatory to get into universities. Of course, it opens a lot of doors, but again, we need to look at what's best fit for the students. So all students will graduate with the CSM High School Diploma, which will allow them to access a small number of colleges in the States. So the CSM High School Diploma has received accreditation, so it is equivalent to a US high school diploma. So therefore, going to US, it's actually not so much of an issue. But again, it depends on which kind of universities they're looking at. Students can also access community colleges, art schools, and technical schools. So art schools, generally the requirement is the portfolio. They want to see that more rather than the academic subjects and academic grades. So when I say technical schools, these are students who might want to be a technician of some sort, or they want to be like a fashion designer where they like using the sewing machine. Then they go into technical schools. They may not need a full undergraduate degree. Every year we have students who obviously graduate the CSM High School Diploma, and they will also take SAT or ACT to access more US colleges. And they can also use SAT or ACT to apply to Japanese universities. And then moving on, the CSM High School Diploma plus IB courses, students can start accessing a wider range of universities in the States, and they can also apply to certain universities worldwide, such as Canada, UK, Australia, and Europe. Again, with IB courses, it really depends on what kind of universities they want to go to. In terms of going to university in any country, I'm confident that we'll be able to find somewhere for them. And obviously, CSM High School Diploma and IB Diploma, you'll have access to everywhere and everything. But then, this will also depend on what kind of grades they're getting in school. So, for example, a student may want to go to Cambridge, Oxford. By taking the IB Diploma, yes, you can apply. But in grade 12, if the students are not getting the grades, they're also not meeting the entry requirements to apply to those schools. So is it still a good fit for them to do the IB Diploma? Maybe not. Sorry, can you go back? Yeah. So if students, for example, they're getting like 28 IB points, let's say, on the IB Diploma. If they're not doing it, they're doing IB courses instead, it is possible that they're getting 30 because they're not dealing with TOK, they're not dealing with extended essay, hence they have more time where they can focus on the 6 subjects in IB courses, then they will have a better overall score. In that case, I would say doing IB courses, they will have better options in the future because their academic profile is better. And normally, those students, where they will access in the future, will end up being exactly the same. So it might be better to take IB courses in that kind of scenario. So, yeah. So moving forward with entry requirements. Again, this is just a really, really rough guide. What I do is personalized guidance. So depending on their academic capabilities, aspirations, maybe background, I kind of recommend according to that. So do not take this as like a must, because this can also change depending on where the student is looking at. But roughly speaking, if students are thinking about any courses in the future that's medical related, such as medicine, biomedical sciences, biochemistry, then very likely they will need to consider biochemistry SLHL. Yeah.
Sorry. So when you mentioned earlier, you mentioned that there's a deadline to kind of switch mid-September,
Yep.
right? Does that mean that they can change from IB course to IB diploma and vice versa, or
Generally, from IB diploma to IB courses.
Yes. Generally,
Generally,
it's
usually go
diploma
down.
Yeah,
to
go
courses.
down
Yeah.
generally.
Because courses to diploma, it's the bigger jump.
Yes.
that can still happen by September, mid-September, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And then very likely they cannot take Math AISL, which is the lowest math class. For students who are considering engineering, chemistry, physics, maths, SLHL are generally the requirements. So when you receive the presentation, the part one has example, there's a link to a university which states those requirements as well. But again, with these two subject areas, it really depends on which country you're looking at. For example, in the UK, very likely both courses will need to be at high level. But in Australia, doesn't really matter. As long as you're presenting the two subjects, you'll still be able to apply. Somewhere like Canada, very likely it's Chem HL and Physics SL. So again, it depends on which country we're looking at. Students who are considering law, a lot of the time there isn't an entry requirement, but there are certain schools around the globe where they do want students to present English HL. But again, if English HL is a more challenging course for your child, English SL it's more appropriate, then my guidance will still be choose English SL so they can perform better and maybe just close a few doors. For economics, this is a weird one because economics can be very theoretical based, but it can also be very mathematical. So depending on the uni, so for universities that focus more on maths, then they will need to present Math AA or Math AIHL. But if the university's economics course is more theoretical based, then Math AASL would be sufficient. So there are examples there for you to look at as well. Students who are considering architecture, I would say sometimes physics is good because when you're studying an architecture course at uni, they do need to touch on physics. So while it's not a requirement, but sometimes we'll see that it's like a recommendation for them to have that foundation. And architecture and anything that's art related, it is not compulsory to take art in school. So you don't need IB art to access these courses because a lot of the time is to do with the portfolio. So if a student is taking art and design outside, or if they have art classes outside of school, they may still be able to build a portfolio outside and then do something else in school. And that kind of depends on the student's aspiration. One year, a student, she was academically quite capable. She couldn't decide whether she wanted to go into medicine or whether she wants to do something fashion related because she was interested in both. So in order to open more doors for her in the future, she kind of had to do double sciences in grade 11 and 12. In the end, she did go to an art school, but then she was able to build her art portfolio outside. Because I know it is quite hard for a grade 10 student to decide their career pathway now. So what we're trying to do is open more doors if they're unsure. Psychology, so some universities, the psychology course, it's quite scientific based, then they may need a science HL. But they also need to look at the math because of the statistics side of things in psychology. And then for computer science, math, AI, SL, generally it's not allowed. So students must take math AASL, math AI HL, or math AAHL. There should be another row at the bottom, which is business and commerce. So again, depending which country, sometimes math AISL, it's not sufficient. So a student will need to take math AASL. I would like to emphasize again, guidance is very personalized according to where students are thinking and what they're looking at in the future. So I may advise a student to take math AISL just because of where they're heading to. But another student might be math AASL because of like something else that they're looking at. So while students, they do talk amongst each other, parents may also talk amongst each other, but best to come back to us to ask for appropriate guidance for your child. That would be the best, because everyone's scenario, it's different. And sometimes your passport may also make a difference in the process as well. So there are a lot of things that we need to consider before we finalize the decision. Yeah. So obviously every country, it's very different. So the requirements are also different. It is very hard for me to explain absolutely everything during this presentation, but I have given you like a brief list of universities and what they're kind of looking at. So in the UK, I would say it's a country with very strict entry requirements and conditions. So if you look at any UK university website, any course, you will see that they will specify the overall point score they want, the specific HL point score, and also like specific subjects. So whether it's law, engineering, or whatever, they will tell you the IB point score they want and what kind of subjects, which is a lot easier for us to give guidance. Everywhere else tends to be a bit tricky because it's not as specific. So for example, in the States, you will never find entry requirements. You will never find IB point score, like the minimum. You will never see that, because a lot of the time it's a holistic approach. So aside from academic grades, they will also be looking at their essays, their extracurricular activities. What you can look at is probably the acceptance rate and the SAT mid-50 percentile. So this will give you a sense of how competitive the school is and possibly where your child is at. With the SAT score, you may also want to look against their current the PSAT score. So all grade 10 students took the PSAT in October, and they already have their results. I have given it to them. So if you want to see how far your child PSAT score is against a US college, I would say SAT is probably a good indication. And then sometimes you will see the university will say like, I would want the student to present the most rigorous subjects, which means the most difficult subjects offered in school. And generally, they are the top schools, like the Ivy League, UC Berkeley, UCLA. If they don't have the most rigorous subjects, does that mean they won't be able to get in? No, because again, it is the holistic. But obviously by taking the most rigorous subjects may put them at an advantage. But then only if the most rigorous subjects are suitable for them, then they will take it. If it's not, then I will still say better to change the subjects around so they're presenting themselves with the best academic grades overall. For Canada, they normally publish what we call the IB point score minimum. So UBC, very likely they will say 28. But I have never sent a student on 28 to UBC before. So while it is minimum, but doesn't mean by meeting that IB point score, they will get an offer. So at certain schools where we know they're more competitive, students will need to be above 28 to get admitted. And then they will also have specific IB subject requirements for certain subjects. Generally, they will be sciences, engineering, and commerce. So those are the ones where they will specify what they want to see in students' IB subjects. And then moving forward, Australia and New Zealand, there's something called the guaranteed entry. So, which is good because guaranteed entry means as soon as they meet that point score, they will get an offer right away. So it doesn't matter whether they're over by 3 points or 2 points. As soon as they meet that point score, they will get an offer. But please pay attention for prerequisites, assumed knowledge, and preferred knowledge. In Australia and New Zealand, these are the kind of terminologies they will use. If it's prerequisites, then it will mean the student must present these subjects in IB. If it's assumed knowledge or preferred knowledge, then it will mean it's not mandatory, but it would be good for them to have it because they believe that it's easier for them to transition to college for that course if they have these knowledge before they enter. For Japan, depending on the university, sometimes they will post the average IB score. So there is no minimum, no maximum. Just according to the last couple of years, the average score which they have admitted students in. So ICU last year was 37.1 out of 45. And then Waseda is 38.2 out of 42. So some universities, they look at core points, so TOK and EE, and some universities, they don't. But I would like to mention that Japanese universities are way more competitive than the last couple of years. I remember sending a student on 28 to ICU maybe 10 years ago. But now, even 34 IB points, it is hard to tell a student that ICU is your safety school because there is a demand because yen is weak. So a lot of families are trying to keep their child in Japan because sending them to overseas is a lot more expensive. But equally, because yen is weak, people outside of Japan are trying to come to Japan to study because it's a lot more affordable for them. So that's why the competition is actually more fierce. And I don't know how much more changes they're going to be, but I have notified the grade 10. So if you're looking at staying in Japan, if your child is looking at staying in Japan, we can no longer just rely on ICU, Waseda, Sophia, Keio. We need to find backups. And these universities could be Retsumeikan, Rikkyo, Tokyo International University. So we pretty much have to expand the list if there's a need to stay in Japan. And for Netherlands, sometimes they do post a minimum IB point score, and there's a link there as a reference. So I would say, please do your research. I'm here to help. I'm here to provide guidance if you're confused with anything. But some of the things you kind of need to consider is, should should your child be taking IB Math AISL? This is probably more important because there are so many courses out there which don't accept Math AISL. But again, if your child is 100% on law, history, where they don't need a math requirement, then of course Math AISL will be sufficient. And then it's best for them to do it so that they can get the best score out of it. For US universities, sometimes there is a lab science requirement, especially at public universities. So there's a link there for you to look at. Unfortunately, computer science and ESS, it's not considered as a lab science. So students may need to still take biochem physics if they're looking seriously at US universities. Doesn't matter whether they want to take law or whatever, like anything that's non-science related, they will still need to present a lab science course. But then it will depend on which university they're looking at. Double sciences or not, so that's always the tricky one, whether chem bio or chem physics. So there are a few links here for you to look at which are double science requirements. In Canada and US, please be aware that there's no law, medicine, physio, dentistry for undergrad. If they are looking at these courses, they will need to do an undergrad in something else and then apply for postgrad. So there's no direct entry. And then as mentioned earlier, there's required subjects, which you can also see compulsory, mandatory, prerequisites. So these are things like subjects that you need to present at the time of your application. And then there's preferred, which is they would like it, but it's not mandatory. Some combinations in IB, I would say, may not work out as well. For example, bio and physics. They're just going to be closing a lot of doors. Because by taking bio and physics, you can't get into a medical related course. But they may also not get into engineering. So by taking biophysics, it won't open doors, but it will close doors. So I've only had one student ever who did bio and physics at CSAN, but it was for a really good reason. So if your student is considering biophysics, I would say maybe please come and chat with me. But as far as I know, no one is kind of in that situation. So I have actually spoken to all the grade 10s already and given appropriate guidance, whether they should be taking diploma courses or whether they need to make subject changes or HLSL changes. But if you have any questions, please come and see me. So my advice would be choose a pathway that's best for them, rather than taking IB diploma, because most of our students are taking IB diploma. It is true that we always, I would say every year, we have more students starting off with the IB diploma, but then as months go by, students realize it is really challenging for them, and then they will go to courses instead. We've had students drop in October, December, or even like end of grade 11. While going from IB diploma to IB courses might not be challenging for us, because it is not difficult for us. It is not difficult for teachers, because their high level and standard level very likely still going to be the same, but they're not going to be doing like all the extra things for IB diploma. But as a counselor, I want them to think what's best for them. And obviously, if they're starting off with IB diploma, they're stressing out for no reason. If they were able to make that good choice for them from the beginning. And we know with IB diploma, students may need to sacrifice time, mental health, and also extracurricular activities, which really allows them to blossom because they can build so many skills that can be helpful in the long run as well. So please consider that. Do not choose a particular subject at high level or standard level just because of an entry requirement. Again, what's best for your child? If the subject is really too challenging, maybe they need to choose something else, and then we can work around it instead. Especially medicine. We know double sciences HL is very challenging in the IB. And sometimes we have students who would do HLSL, not fit a certain requirement, and then they go and study something called the foundation, which was a much better transition for them, and then going into a medical school in the UK. So there are different alternatives aside from going straight into an undergrad degree program. So we can always explore that, because my goal is I want them to be able to thrive in high school, build confidence, and I think that's quite important as they move on to the future. I mean, I would say this is pretty much it for me. I'll be around to I think we have a few questions from the survey.
Thank you, answer.
So-
I think, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go
One
through.
question was, are there specific subject levels required in accordance with subject university choices?
Japanese higher level for moving on to a Japanese university.
So you do not need Japanese in order to go to a Japanese university. So most of our students, they don't have the language or academic language to get into a Japanese taught degree program. So our students are still accessing English taught degree programs in Japan. So in that case, anything is fine, like any language, it's fine. So students have gone to Waseda with Spanish B as well. So it's not a must. If students are considering a Japanese taught degree program, they won't need to take Japanese high level or Japanese A either, because they will need to do the Japanese entrance exam at the university. So that would already be showing their Japanese proficiency.
Second is for me. I would like to know about mid-course changes in chosen subjects. So I think I answered already. Mid-September of year one, or maybe later if we feel that the student is struggling. Quarter one, we will say, of year one. Next was, is there any flexibility of the change of the subjects after? Yes, after the submission this year, yes, there's some flexibility. If your daughter changes her mind because she thinks that she wants to go to a different path, that's totally fine. We're flexible. 11th grade. Is 11th grade is the most important, or 12th grade is the most important? Both. Grade 11 is the foundation to do well in grade 12, but there are many more deadlines in grade 12.
I mean, sorry, can I
Yes.
add? So for that question, it really kind of depends where you're looking at the same time. So for example, in Australia, they don't look at internal grades. They only look at IB final grades. So we don't even submit any transcripts to Australian universities. They want to see the final grade, and that's all that matters. For a lot of applications, we very often need to submit what we call an academic transcript. So on the transcript, we will have the end of grade 9 grades, end of year grade 9 grades, end of year grade 10 grades, end of year grade 11 grades, and also predicted grades in grade 12. So these are forecast results which the teachers believe what they will achieve when they get the IB diploma or IB courses. So in that case, grade 11 grades are obviously going to be important because it is demonstrating their academic performance throughout high school.
Should we talk about predicted grades also?
Yeah.
At the end of grade 11 and at the end of quarter one, end of September of year 2, the DP teachers give a predicted grade. But it's helping Miss Louis to determine if the student is going to be eligible for or is meeting the requirements for her university choices. Please do not try. Some students try to get a 7 at all costs. So we will follow don't harass the teachers. The teachers know best what the students are going to do in the IB exam. So there's no negotiation possible to get a 7 instead of a 6.
I mean, obviously students want the best grade.
Yes.
But then we also need to be realistic.
Honest, realistic.
For a lot of universities, when the offer is conditional, they will still have to meet certain conditions in their final IB results to be able to be admitted. So if the grades are inflated and they end up not getting it, then they're going to be in a very difficult position. So it is important we're realistic about what they're capable of getting.
Okay. We're curious about what diploma is needed for best US qualification. I think.
So I kind of covered that, but I
Partially,
can kind of mention it a little bit more. So students thinking about Ivy League, UC Berkeley, UCLA, like the top schools, I would say they will need to present the IB diploma. But again, if their grades are not meeting what they're looking at, they will also, the chances of getting in will be quite low. Every year we also have students on IB courses and they still be able to access good universities in the States. For example, we've sent students to Fordham, Santa Clara, Loyola Marymount University, University of California, Riverside. They will still accept students on IB courses. So again, it just depends where.
Case
But
by
definitely it's what's best for your child.
Okay, if my child's chosen subject doesn't fit into the schedule, how will you cover it? But unfortunately, we're doing our best when we're preparing the schedule, but sometimes we need to ask some students, generally it's a short list of students, they need to change the subject. We can't accommodate everyone actually. Now, if the course is available on Pamoja, which is an online IB recognized online courses, students can take courses on Pamoja. In that case, I'm the coordinator. I'm monitoring their progress on Pamoja, and they can take courses on Pamoja. It's the case for IB Inicio French and Spanish or Chinese. But
We
they
do
have
have,
film. We have cases of students who have taken Pamoja courses for film, because film is not offered at CEISEN. So, additional costs.
So this year we have one student taking Spanish ab initio
Oh, yes.
through Pamoja as well,
Yep.
with a grade 11. So it is possible
It
to
is
switch
possible,
language.
yes.
Susan, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
sure I didn't say it before. A lot of our kids have dual citizenship, right?
Yes.
And there are certain advantages. I'm Kaida's father, so she's Canadian, she's Japanese until she's 21 at least. Is there an advantage to applying as a Canadian citizen versus a Japanese citizen? And this is a weird question, I know, but obviously the tuition goes up for international,
Yeah.
but I also know some universities like to take in a lot of international students because they get more tuition. So if you're in a position where there's a school she really wants to go to, is there like this kind of standard way of thinking about let's apply as a Canadian, let's apply as a Japanese or Australian?
Yeah, there is, but it depends on where you end up applying. So if you're thinking about Canadian universities, then I would say you still need to apply as a Canadian because of the tuition, but also if you're applying as an international, then you start to go into the process of getting a visa, getting like all those health benefits, and you need to pay out of your own pocket as opposed to getting all the benefits as a citizen. Obviously in Japan, all students are going in local, doesn't matter which nationality, because the fact that they're studying here, they have
They have the right to be here.
the Japanese residence card, then they'll just be considered as local. But yeah, there are definitely certain advantage depending on where you're going.
Yeah, because like putting money aside for
Yeah.
a second, if there's a school she really wants to go to, the program she really wants, and they are really favoring international students, maybe with lower IB scores than Canadian, is that kind of competition?
Yes,
Is
there
that
is.
something you have to consider sometimes?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
Tricky, yes.
Yeah. And also, I mean, US as well, like some students, unfortunately, if you're holding onto a Japanese passport, it is the same holding onto a Chinese passport, Vietnamese passport, because they're just gonna be putting you in this Asian group.
This bucket.
Yeah, this bucket. But then we have, for example, a student who's Brazilian, then you're probably better off applying using a Brazilian passport. I would say the chances it's higher. Yeah.
The last question was about medical schools, both in Japan and worldwide. Do they accept the IB diploma?
Yeah,
It's
so,
quite a long
I mean, it is a
question, but-
very specific question. So, I mean, to answer it briefly, IB diploma can allow students to go into any medical schools worldwide. We do send students to UK, we've sent students to Japan before. Obviously getting into medical school, it's very competitive. So some students who are eager to become doctors, they don't really care which country they go to. So I have sent students to Czech before as well. So it is definitely possible worldwide. So it's more like a private conversation that we'll need to have if you want to find out a bit more. Yeah.
That's it for the questions that we have received. Any? Yes?
When exactly do students receive their final IB score? Like what month?
Oh,
July 6th.
July 6, 7.
July. So that's after graduation.
That's after the graduation,
Yeah.
first week of July.
I see. So some universities will.
Yes, 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 yes. Some universities,
Sorry,
some.
I didn't hear the question.
So some universities will accept the student, but under the condition of whatever score they.
Yeah, so again, depending on the country. So UK, it's pretty much, they don't care about graduation. They only care about the grade. So when they receive an offer, all our students will receive offers in the last year of high school, so in grade 12. Sometimes it's conditioned, so they will have to wait for results to come out, and sometimes it's unconditional, so they just need to graduate from CEISEN and they're done and dusted. So it depends on the country.
We have one case. Students can challenge the grades. it's not, most of the time it's not successful and the grade can go down also. We have one case, one student who wanted to go to Edinburgh in biochemistry, I don't remember. She needed a 6 in bio-HL, she had a 5. She challenged the mark and she got a 6. So she could go to her first choice. But generally, the marks remains the same. And it incurs an additional cost to challenge the grades. Please?
Do students have exactly the same information that we get today?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the
So-
slides
Yes,
that I
yes,
showed
yeah.
you.
Yes.
My detector manager.
Yeah. So the slides I showed you
Yes.
today, they've been sent to students as
Yeah.
well. So I've already had presentations with students.
Yes. And yes. The students had a chance to talk to grade 11 and 12 students also last week for every subject. And they can, the EP teachers at CESN are very flexible. They can ask questions anytime they want. Yes?
Sorry, for you, like American universities, there's usually like early early
applications,
commitments and
yeah.
early applications. Is that like for Japanese international students? Is that applicable? Is that something that you guys can kind of support?
Yeah, so that's part of the US admission
Right.
process, I guess. So there are different deadlines. So US EDEA, early decision, early action, students can also apply.
Right.
So it doesn't matter what kind of nationality they have.
Okay. And with that, what are the grade standards like? You know, when you submit, obviously the IB, you know, the grades.
Predictive
Don't,
grades.
yeah. Oh, they're going to be predictive grades. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, one more question. Obviously, our daughters are talking to you regularly. Is there going to be opportunity or a requirement for us as parents to also talk to you directly, have meetings with you, check in? or
It's
something?
not mandatory, but parents are welcome to email me. So some grade 10 parents have already emailed for a meeting because they want to understand a bit more about the higher ed or IB. So yeah, if you think there's a need to have a chat, just drop us an email.
And we have your email probably from today's invitation.
Yes, everything, again, everything, it's going to be updated. It's on the parents portal.
Yeah, okay. I know you guys think we all use that all the time, but some of us have a hard time with it, so
So here
there any
are
chance
the
you can-
I'll
emails.
send the presentation out to your email.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just another note, you might have received emails from Lee last year about like higher ed presentation. So I do specific region higher ed presentations in the evening from like March all the way until June. So if there's a country that you're considering, please feel free to sign up and listen. It will be more information about the particular region that you're in. Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Please, if you have not signed up, please raise your hand. I'm going to take your name. Otherwise, I think that's it. Thank you very much for today. Thank you very much.
Yeah.